Okay, hello everyone and welcome back to World of Tanks Blitz, and today we're going to be doing a review here of this tank, the Hellcat, the Tier 6 other American turreted tank destroyer, which is kind of the same as the Sam Jackson here, except different. It's kind of the same but not. As you can see, this is a Wolverine hull, this is a completely new hull, but the turrets are basically the same, and so are the guns. But we'll see that later on. So, looking at it then, 848 HP, which is including the improved assembly, which gives me the extra 48 HP. So, total hit points 800 without the improvement, which compared to the Sam Jackson, it's got 850 as standard. If we have a look at the Flat Panzer has got 850 as standard. The Nashorn has got 1060 HP, but then it is a completely flimsy little tank. Do I have any other tank destroyers? I have, of course, got the... Where is it? My gun carrier. There it is. I really need to... There you go. And the gun carrier has got 901 HP, but without it, it's got 850 rather. So in terms of HP, the Hellcat has actually got one of the least amount of HP out of all of the Tier 8 tank destroyers. But it balances it by being one of the fastest. But it doesn't balance it in terms of the armour. It's only now, when I look at the stats, that I see just how bad the armour is. I knew the armour was bad, but not this bad. 13 front, side and rear hull armour. That is terrible. I've never looked at this armour before, and that's pretty terrible. 76 frontal turret, 31 side, 44 rear. And, well, what's that like? Well, if we have a look at the Sam Jackson in terms of turret armour, 76, 25, 25. It is near enough the same turret, except this one is open and this one has got a covered top. That's pretty much the only difference. But in terms of armour, whew, yeah, 13 on the hull. Oof. High explosive rounds will do lots to you. Everyone loves shooting Hellcats with armour, with high explosive rather, because the Hellcat doesn't have any armour. That's what I need to say. Yes, this thing has got absolutely terrible armour. The Sam Jackson has not got completely great armour, but it has at least got 114 at the front of the hull, so you can kind of bounce stuff off the front of the hull a bit. You know, the Nashorn doesn't have any armour, but it's still not 13. It's only 30 at the front, 20 at the sides and rear, but it's still more than 13. Even the gun carrier. The gun carrier does not have that much armour. However, it's still better than the Hellcat at 130 front, because they buffed it. It was 101, it's now 130. This thing still does not have good armour. It gets penetrated every which way by armour-piercing rounds. But the Hellcat, oof, boy, that 13 mil of armour is really going to help you out here. To put it into perspective just how terrible that armour is, let's go to Tier 3, shall we? It'll never see Tier 3s, but let's go to Tier 3s. Let's have a look at the Su-76I. Alright, Su-76I doesn't have high explosive anymore. Okay, I don't think the Cross Tractor does either. No, they got rid of most of the high explosive. Here's something which has got high explosive though, BT-7 artillery. Tier 2 gun, KT-28 is a Tier 2, was it 75 mil or 76 mil gun. It's got 38 mil of pen on these high explosive rounds. This thing can nuke a Hellcat for how much damage? 208. It can do a quarter of its health at a regular damage roll. And this is a Tier 3 light tank with high explosive. FCM, now you see they got rid of most of the high explosive shells from low tier tanks, which is a shame, because I don't think anything else here has got a howitzer or anything like a howitzer, which has got everything at Tier 2's only got the one type of ammo. Yeah. But even so, a Tier 3 is the lowest we can go with tanks which have got... Don't worry about this. It's the only thing which has got high explosive is that BT-7 artillery at Tier 3 anymore. But even a Tier 3 tank can go through. Let's have a look quickly at a tier 1 tank. Let's have a look at the autocannon on the Panzer II. The autocannon on the Panzer II, it's got 48mm of average pen. A Panzer II can wreck a Hellcat, and it's a tier 1 tank now. It was tier 2, it's now tier 1. And it's a tier 1 against a tier 6 tank, and it can absolutely wreck that frontal hull. Yeah, it does not sustain hits. The turret can take hits, ever so slightly. The gun manlet is bouncy. The sides, not so much, because they are still flimsy as hell. However, the front of the turret can bounce some shots. So, if you go hull down, you can kind of bounce things off of your frontal turret, but it's not a guarantee. Otherwise, this thing has got absolutely no armour whatsoever. Concealment's alright, and view range is alright, 252 metres, that's not too bad. Manoeuvrability is where this thing shines, however, aside from the gun, because it's got 65 as a top speed, 15 in reverse, and the average speed is 38 kilometers per hour. That's better than some mediums at this tier. Let's have a look at some of the mediums at this tier quickly, shall we? The Panzer IV Schmalturm, a medium tank, has got a 31 average speed kilometers per hour. It's got a 14.5 power to weight ratio. And then we have a look at the Hellcat, and the Hellcat has got a 22.2 power to weight ratio, and it does that 38 average kilometers per hour top speed. We have a look at the Sentinel, the AC4 Sentinel, a tank with somewhat okay armour, has got a 33 average top speed and a 16.4 power to weight ratio. We have a look at the Sam Jackson, the other tier 6 American tank destroyer, has got a 14.4 power to weight and a 28 average speed. It is a speedy little race car, which is not surprising considering the lack of armour this thing has. And, you know, the 22.2, you know, power to weight ratio, it only weighs 20 tons. There's tanks at tier 2 that probably weigh more than this thing, like a Micro Mouse. Maybe not a Micro Mouse, but let's just have a look quick. And I keep on comparing this thing to low tier tanks because it makes sense. And you go 10.57. The Micro Mouse weighs half of the Hellcat, and the Hellcat's a tier 6 tank destroyer with a 90mm. This thing's a French tank with a 47mm gun. Yeah, it's a speedy little race car. You can zip around the battlefield at the speed that would make light tanks jealous. It is just absolutely a speedy thing, however you can't sustain a single hit in it. But it is, you know, got a very good power to weight. You can get up hills very quickly, you're very sprightly. The hull traverse is only 34.83 and the turret traverse is only 16.69. I think that's like worse than the Tankenstein. That's a very slow turret traverse, but then the same as with the Sam Jackson. Because it has got a 450 horsepower engine with this top Continental Wright engine. Wright Continental. The stock engine is 35 and you can feel it sluggish. The next ump is 400 and it's still pretty sluggish, but once you get that and the top tracks, it really speeds up because the aim time goes down and the train crossing capability goes up as well in terms of between the two tracks. So it is worth obviously upgrading this thing. It is a tier 6 tank destroyer. Lots of people like the Hellcat for the reason that it is very fast, it is very quick, and it has got a decent 90mm. However, to summarise so far, absolutely no armour whatsoever, an alright turret mantlet, and it's quicker than like a rocket to the moon. It is a very, very quick mobile tank that can't sustain a single hit. High explosive will absolutely wreck your day and your modules because you've got absolutely no armour whatsoever. However, we come to the gun. Now, the gun that you're going to be playing it with is the 76mm AT gun, which is the same as you get on like the Wolverine or like the stock Sam Jackson, where it gets slightly better high explosive pen compared to the stock gun, and it gets a slightly better rate of fire. I'm trying to look. Yeah, it gets a slightly better reload time, slightly better DPM, and it also gets better aim time and dispersion. But overall, it's not that great of a gun. 128mm pen, it's alright, but compared to when most of the tier 6 mediums have got at least 150-ish pen, apart from like, you know, the T-3485 and a couple of the Americans, it's not that great of a gun. But then you get the upgraded turret, and then you get the upgraded 90mm, which is basically the same 90mm and the same turret as on the Sam Jackson, and then this thing becomes the Super Hellcat, which was an actual tank in real life. It was, you know, an upgunned version of the Hellcat to deal with Tiger 2s. But then they just created the Pershing, and the whole idea of a super Hellcat went out the window. But this wasn't, in fact, an actual tank. And in World of Tanks, it's just an upgrade to the Hellcat. The historically accurate Hellcat, if you wanted it, would be this turret and this 76mm. Otherwise, Super Hellcat is them too. But it is, however, a good gun, nonetheless. With 160 average pen, that's pretty decent pen for Tier 6. You can get through most Tier 6 and Tier 5 heavy tanks, and some Tier 7 heavy tanks. However, things like some of the more heavily armoured things, like KV3s, Tankensteins, Tiger Ps, those things will give you problems from the front because they all have very strong turret and or hull armour. But otherwise, for dealing with other tank destroyers, medium tanks, light tanks, heavy tanks at your tier or below, or up tier if they're, you know, mediums and stuff, this is perfectly decent penetration. Goes up to 243 average pen with APCR, so if you do need to get through the frontal armour of that Tankenstein KV3 or Tiger P right through the front, and you can't aim for a weak spot, then you know, APCR is your go-to, and it's pretty decent. High explosive, yeah, 45mm pen, yeah, nothing too special there. 90mm gun, 225 average damage with AP, 190 with APCR, and 270 with high explosive. Pretty decent gun depression at -10 plus 20. That's, you know, decent enough. You can ridgeline some stuff, you know, use that relatively good frontal turret armour. And, you know, 3.4 second aim time is not too shabby. Very good accuracy, 0.33. That's very laser-like accuracy. Reload time is 7.58, a little bit slow. However, it is a 90mm. You are an open-top tank destroyer as well, don't forget. And yeah, it's just an all-round pretty decent gun on a, for all of its faults of having no armour, it is a pretty good tank destroyer as well. You can outflank things very easily and deliver a nice big solid, you know, heavy 90mm shell into some unsuspecting rear or side of an enemy tank. And that's why people like this, because it's basically a big gunned medium which doesn't have armour the same as many of the other mediums at this tier. So yeah, overall, very fast tank, no armour, pretty decent gun, and a good turret front. So you can go ridgeline poking or barreling around with the mediums, really. You are just a sort of weird hybrid tank destroyer medium tank combination, the same as the Blazes, kind of, although not as crap as the Blaze. But yeah, that's the overall for the stats. As for consumables, you've of course got your standard repair, first aid, fire extinguisher, and then you've got engine power boost, 20% to engine power for 15 seconds, adrenaline, 20% to load speed, and 10% chance of damaging enemy vehicle modules, and then you've got your multi-purpose, which is those three rolled into one. Go ahead, mount them on as you wish. As for provisions, you've got standard and improved fuel for 3 and 10% respectively to engine power and turret traverse. You don't need it in this tank, but hey, if you really want something that will make a leopard, you know, cry because of how fast you are, then you can go ahead and mount them if you want. Otherwise, you've of course got can of cola and crate of cola for 3 and 10% respectively to crew mastery, which is not too bad of an idea for getting that, well, for mostly getting the DPM up and the reload time down. You know, not too bad of an idea. And then you've got your protective kit, which is all of that lot, so you can go ahead and mount them as you wish. You don't really need any of them, not like some of the super heavy tank destroyers, Tortoise, T-28, Doom Turtle, those sorts of things, or super heavies like Mouse. But you can go ahead and mount them if you want. As for ammo, you carry 30 rounds of 90mm, which is not too bad. You can go ahead and mess around with them as you wish. You're never likely to run out of them. This tank does carry enough to see you through even the toughest of battles. Even if everything was a TOG, you can probably wipe out 7 TOGs easy enough. If your own team does, you know, at least half the health of 1 TOG. But otherwise you're not likely to run out. It is maybe a little bit on the low side, but compared to the Sam Jackson, which carries 47 rounds, it is less. But you're not likely to use up that many rounds, so you don't really need to worry about taking your time with the shots. As for equipment, gun rammer is a good idea. You don't really need the calibrated shells. You've got pretty decent penetration for, you know, a tank destroyer at this tier. For example, the Jagdpanzer Panzer IV has only got 150mm of pen with that top 75mm gun. The exception is the Nashorn, which has got like 203 pen because it's got the long 88 on it, but otherwise gun ram is probably the more useful. Improved modules for the extra track durability, because if you get your track blown off you are dead, because anything can penetrate you from anywhere at any tier. Do remember that. So improved module for the extra track durability, and 10% minus 10% damage from high explosive shells with a caliber larger than 130 might be useful, but honestly there's not that much which has got anything bigger than a 130 at this tier or even the tier above, so it's really for the track, but you can go with that if you wanted to. I mean, each to their own. Camo net or coated optics, it's a toss-up really between how you want to play it. You can play it in two ways. You can be a traditional tank destroyer, get to a good spot very early on in the match and snipe from a distance, or you can go running around with the mediums, in which case the coated optics will be more useful to you. Honestly, it's a choice as to your playstyle. I've gone with coated optics because I play this more like a medium tank with a slow ass turret and a big old gun, but you can play it as a tank destroyer, so camo net might be more beneficial to you. Either one. You don't need the enhanced gun lane drive really. You've got pretty decent aim time of 3.4 seconds, so you don't really need the enhanced gun lane drive, so maybe supercharge would be more effective, so that you don't lose that much penetration over the distance if you are going for the long range. Either one. And then I would say engine accelerator if you really wanted to unlock that third tier of equipment, but honestly you don't really need either of these. Perhaps engine accelerator, get the hull and the engine power slightly better, or you can just go with straight up hull reverse up to 38 degrees per second with improved control. Really is a choice for you. You don't really need refined guns, so maybe vert stabs for when you're firing on the move with that slow ass turret. Not a bad idea for vert stabs on this tank, if you're going to go with one. Enhanced tracks, maybe, or toolbox for the extra module repair speed. It is your choice really. Again, if your tracks get blown off and you're in the open, you are dead anyway, so it doesn't really matter, and then your choice of whatever the hell those two things are. So overall, I do like the tank. It is a fun tank destroyer to go roaming around with the mediums, or sitting at the back of the map and sniping with that big old 90mm gun at this tier. You've just got to remember that if you are spotted, you are dead unless you get your arse into cover as soon as possible, because you can't take any hit with that 13. I still can't believe it's only 13mm of armour. But yes, so there it is. The no, not the Sam Jackson. This is the Hellcat, the M18. Yeah, a fun old little tank destroyer. Leads up to T25-2, and then the T28 Prote, which is just an alternate route to the as opposed to the T28. So yeah, it is a fun old little tank destroyer. And so yeah, that's it. Every objective stacked to do based on my own opinion and own experience with the Hellcat. So yes, I'll thank you all for watching, and goodbye.